Hi, good evening, guys. Good evening, all. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Abhay. Good evening, Mukti. Good evening, Gagan. Good evening, Brindra. Good evening, Ronak. Good evening, Shikhar. Good evening, Rakesh. And Shikhar, how are you? I'm okay. I got into some situation, but today is fine. Okay, 130 more seconds. Good evening, Saurabh. Good evening, Ajit. And good evening, Gaurav. Good evening, Gaurav. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so let us begin. Thank you all, and I appreciate you all joining the session. Okay, before we move forward, any questions, concerns, challenges, issues, whatever we've discussed so far? Any questions, concerns, issues, challenges, problems, difficulties, whatever we have covered so far? Okay, so today um, we will talk about a concept that is called chart of account. So we'll discuss about chart of account. So what are we going to discuss? So we're going to discuss first and foremost what is chart of account. Second, we will discuss what are the standard processes in the chart of account. So those are the two topics we're going to cover in this subject. So there is something called control account. We talked about this concept of control account last time in the last class which we had. Good evening, Gaurav. Good evening, Sunny. So, and if you look at it here, account receivable equals to control account. Now, if you see this account entry here, and that also we saw in our exercises as well, that in case of account receivable, like in case of customer, we debit our customer, credit our tax account, and credit our income account. Okay. Okay. This is the account entry which happens. We did several exercises in which we create a customer invoice and then we post onto it. Okay. The second point here is chart of account. Now, what is a chart of account? I would like you guys take a pen and paper, make a note of that bullet point which I highlighted. Chart of account is an index. Chart of account is an index of all GL accounts used by your business. So that is important. Now, if you see here, where is the chart of account? If I go to the module, if I go to finance, and here we have a chart of accounts. We talked about that before as well. Now, in the chart of account, what we see? We have a different drawers, different buckets. 1 bucket, 2 bucket, 3 bucket, 4 bucket, 5 bucket, 6 bucket, 7 bucket, 8 bucket, 9 bucket, 10 bucket. So total of 10 buckets. And then here we have okay. So here we have a, if I click on the asset bucket, you get all asset account. You click on the liability, you get all liability account. You get equity, these are all equity account. We click on the revenue, we get all revenue account. We click on the expenditure, we get all expenditure account. So that is how okay. Good evening, Manjay. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining the session. So here, what we are saying, the chart of account okay. So chart of account, I will also like you guys to make a note of this bullet point here, which you see, chart of account is index, is an index of all GL accounts used by your businesses. And then we have GL account is what? So each GL account has an account code, an account description, and additional information that determine the function of that account. Make a note of this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Take your pen and paper, and then we discuss. If you see here, if let us say I select any account, asset, liability, equity, whatever, and here we have office equipment. You see that here? Office equipment. In this so this is the bucket assets. In the asset, there is a tangible asset. In the tangible asset, there is a fixture, fitting, tool, and equipment. In that bucket, we have office and equipment. Now, if you see here, we have a GL account. This is GL account number 112000. Then we have a description of account. Then we have description of account. And then it also tells us different other things, what level. It's a fifth level. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and in the last, it is level 5. You see the level 5. In office and equipment, how much is the balance? This is the balance. Okay? That is what this attribute basically means. Now, there are different attributes. So, for example, I go to expenditure. Let's take an example. And if you go to expenditure bucket, I have a lot of different kind of expenditure here. So we have this expenditure for electricity. If you see here, this is GL account, name is electricity, used for currencies, level 3, this is the balance 12,500, and it is being handled in the balance is in Indian currency, and account type is expenditure, is expenditure type of account. It is a expenditure type of account which we have here in this case. Okay. We have electricity. Then we have additional information that determine the functions. So for example, what kind of account it is and all that. So that is all is there in chart of account. Then we have a chart of account structure. So in your company, you can have many general ledgers. There could be dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. Somebody was asking me in the last class that these numbers remain same. Not necessarily. You can keep same if you want to. But many times, every company will have their own chart of account. So every company will have their own structure. Everybody have their own way to define expenses. Everybody will see what kind of expenses they want. Some expenses could be common. Some expenses could be for a specific company. So chart of accounts, in most cases, is always specific to a company. And here you will see something called, these are the different drawers, drawer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Normally there are 10 drawers. Most companies will use these 5 or 6 drawers, like one drawer or one bucket is assets, another drawer, or drawer is like you have drawers in your your table where you keep your stuff. So it's like a drawer or buckets. So you have another bucket of liability accounts. You have another bucket of equity account. And then we have another bucket of revenue account. We have another bucket of expenditure account. So we can have all these different expenditure and other accounts. I would like you guys to make a note of this bullet point also. Generally accepted accounting principles. So organization chart of account follows generally accepted accounting principle. So like the people who are accountant, they know there is something called gaps, which is the accounting principle formulation. So people use those accounting principle, which is called gaps. Okay. So that is what this basically means. So if you guys want to make a note of it, the chart of account follows gaps. This is the accounting protocols. Then we have something called chart of account structure or balance sheet structure. Okay. Now, what is the basically meaning of that is chart of account structure or balance sheet structure. Okay. So what does this basically means, and what does this basically suggest us, and what does this all basically means for us? So these are the chart of account. On the top, normally there is a balance sheet. So like asset, liability, capital, reserves, that is part of your balance sheet. Then in the bottom, you have different kind of expenses and revenue. Those are normally part of your profit and loss. If you see on the top, so if you have a bank account, that bank account is considered as part of assets. You have the payable which you have to do to the vendors, that is a vendor liability. That is a vendor liabilities. Okay. So these are that way. These are the different. And these are all different kind of general ledgers. Assets part of the balance sheet, liabilities part of the balance sheet. Your reserve and capital is part of the balance sheet. If you have bank account, that bank account normally reflect your assets, and your payable account. Payable account basically means what you're gonna pay to your vendors. That normally refer your liabilities. Okay. Then you have a revenue account. So revenue. So what is the revenue? Revenue is also your turnover of your company. So we see that here revenue is a turnover. Now where the revenue come from? So revenue come from customer invoicing. So when we do invoicing to the customer, at that time, system creates your revenue account. So remember, we did that exercise multiple times. So let us say, if I look at it, one of customer invoice, and if you look at accounts there, then and if you go back, just look at one of the account, and you go to general entry here. So see here, this is my sales revenue account. So when I'm doing a custom invoice, system recognize my revenue. That is what we have here, your revenue account. Okay. And then you can have a different profit and loss, you have a tax, and all these different expenses, a lot of those expenditures. So profit and the loss. So normally you have your revenue accounts, and you also have a different your expense accounts. Okay. So that is what we have it here. Okay. Now, on the top, as we discussed, in any company, there are three important financial reports. So there is a balance sheet, there is a trial balance, and there is a P&L or profit and loss. Balance sheet include what? So balance sheet include your bank account, your liabilities, and your capital and reserve. That is part of your balance sheet. If you go back to SAP, in the SAP also, if you look at it, financial report, and here we have a financial report. In that financial report, we have a balance sheet. Now here in the balance sheet, we can define different balance sheets. In the balance sheet, what we have, and you can go to level 1. So in the balance sheet, you have asset, liability, equity. This is level 1. If I select to level 2, these are my fixed asset, my current liability, my long-term liability. These are my equity. If I go to level 3, then you get a level 3. This is level 3. Fixed asset, current liability, long-term liability. This is my different equities. This is level 3. If I go to level 4, this goes to level 4. You can go to level 10. Normally, people use level 4 till level 5. I haven't seen anybody using level 10 because that becomes too complicated and cumbersome. Level 4, level 5, till the level 5 is what very common, what happens in the industry. So this is your balance sheet. So that is what we see the balance. Then you can have a trial balance. So we see that here, you can have a trial balance. Then if you see here, there is a P&L. There is a P&L or profit and loss. So balance sheet, trial balance, P&L. These are the three important financial reports which a lot of companies will ask you to do. Now there is also definition as well. So I would like you guys, let me highlight this. So take pen and paper and minute and 2 or whatever required. So write down what is the balance sheet. Some of your accountant and all that will understand, some of you will not. So make a note of the balance sheet, summarize the values of the business assets, liabilities, and owners' equity accounts. That is the definition of the balance sheet. Then trial balance. So the trial balance display for each account. Beginning balance for the particular period, and all the debts and credits, and the ending balance. So this period, what is my beginning balance and what is my ending balance for this period. So this period to this period. So it starts from January until, let us say, December, whatever the period is. And then what was my beginning balance for all debits and all credits, and what is my end balance. Okay, so that is the trial balance. So make a note of that word called trial balance. The trial balance display each account. There could be many accounts in the company. What is the beginning balance for a period? So let's say in January 1st, what was the beginning period of all the debits and credits? And then what is the ending balance? So let us say I'm doing 31st December or 31st December, then what is my debit and credit and what is my ending balance? Okay. So that is what we can do in the SAP system. So balance sheet, trial balance, and the third bullet point is P&L. The third bullet point which we have is profit and loss. Okay. What is the profit and loss? Make a note of that as well. So in the profit and loss, the statement is determined after the end of the financial year. So like in January of 2020, you will be saying what happened in 2019. It takes the balances of the expense accounts. So what was my total different kind of balances or expenses? We paid salary, we put electricity bill, we spend in this, we put into the internet. What are the different expenses for the year? Will we balance from the balances of the revenue account which come up with the profit or loss? Which basically means in this last year 2019, what was my overall revenue? So we sell this, we sold this item, so we make a sale of 10 million. What was my revenue? What was my expenses? Expenses could be different type of expenses in the company. So in expense A, what was that expense? In expense B, what was that expense? So similarly, we can have different expenses, different type of expenses. Okay, so these are the three important financial reports which most companies will have. Okay, make a note of these three. We talked about labels in the chart of account. So in the chart of account, you can also have a different label. Label 1, label 2, label 3, label 4, label 5. Okay, we can have different labels. Okay, we can have different labels. So where is the label? So we close this. We go to chart of account. Okay. Now if you see here, now in this bucket, what we have. So if you see here, the label comes up here. So if you click on this account, this is label 5. You see that? Capitalized formation expenses. And what label is 5? So label 1, then fixed asset. Within the fixed asset, we have a tangible asset. Intangible asset, we have formation expenses. And formation expenses, this is my capitalized formation expenses, whatever it is. So that is why we have these 5 level of expenses. Okay. So here we can have a different capitalized formation expenses. And then this is the 5th level. If I click on it, this is 4th level. Click on it, this is 3rd level. Click on it, 2nd level. So 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level, 5th level. You can have a different labels. Most, in my personal experience also, most people go till label 5. So level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Most people will go till level 5. That is what we have. Level 5. Level 5. System, there is some coloring here. System display titles in blue and active accounts in black. And define default account is displayed in the green. Okay. So now what is the basic meaning of that? So if we go back here, so we see that there's some this bluish, there's some blackish, and if you see this building, this is a bit greenish. That color, there's a bluish, blackish, and this is greenish. Okay, so that is what we see the color here. Titles is in blue. You see that goodwill is a title, formation expense is a title, expenses is the title. So title is in blue. And then we have black color, active account, active. Okay. So in active account, we have a black color is all active accounts. See that here, all account. This is account. And how do you know it is active? There's a button here. You see that? Active account. So there's a button here called active account. If this button is put on, then this account is a active account. Okay. So we can have here, this button says that this account is a active account. So this is active account. Active account. Now there is something called account defined in GL account determination is displayed in the green. So what is that basically means is that, okay, building is a bit greenish here. So that basically means that because of so here we have a green color, and this green color is basically says that this account is my default account. Okay. Let's say that is still green. So that is a bit of a coloring, and this is the meaning of this color. Now, when is it account determined? Account default account basically means, remember in the last class we talked about that a lot of these accounts get automatically default. So we talked about this account determination window. In that window, we saw that, you know, for different things, the different accounts has been defaulted. So those are in the green. Bit of a coloring. Now there is something called account details. Each account defined for a specific currency. If you see here, when you define account, there is a currency, INR. So there is always a currency. Then we also can have account can be related to different financial objects, if possible, to run financial report by a project. Now look at this very carefully. What does this basically mean? So many times what happens in SAP V1 also, there is a project management. I have to talk about this project management. So project management, many companies do projects. Now, why we are talking the project in finance class? We are talking about the project management in the finance class because when we do run the project, at that time, we would be basically running those. We can have those projects as a cost object. So in my company, I have a project, building an office. Building an office in my company is a project. So when I running this project, building a project in my company, then how much different revenue and expenses came into it? Okay, that is what it's come. Now, what does it basically mean here? So if I go back to, let us say, my expenses account here, and let's say I look some expense. So let's say I have this. Look at this building maintenance. So I have an expense called building expense. So now if you look at it here in building maintenance, then here we have something called project, and we can assign the project. We can have a different projects maybe. These are different projects. Now, what is the purpose of this project? And we're going to talk about that also. The project basically means you can accumulate the cost by these projects. So we can accumulate the cost by these projects. We can accumulate the project's cost. So this is the example of a project, and you can say, okay, over the period of time, how much cost got assigned to these projects, and you can assign that project to the account. So that basically means when you're purchasing any item, it goes to that project. So, and for many companies, this project is very important. Some company it is not. Some company only works on projects. So like we have one customer who basically only does projects only, nothing else. So for them, everything is like a project accounting. They have to capture the cost and profit of every project. So that is where you can assign, and then we see here project we can assign here. Okay, that is what we see here, the project, and whatever the name of the project is from the top down. So we can choose it, and we can assign the name of that project, some metro project or whatever. So that basically means whenever we assign the cost to this GL, it will assign to this project. Okay, that's what this basically means. Account details. Then we also have some additional account details, document setting and all that. Now, what does this basically mean? Every account has a validity period. So you can also have an account from this date to this date. You can also set up this account is active or inactive. So we see here, there's account detail here. In this account detail, you see the account detail. Here you can put active. Okay, this project, this account is valid from this date to this date. Because it's possible that it's not that, okay, you make a GL, that GL is active forever. You may not use that active. That same like customer. You have a customer, it may not be active now. You have a vendor, it may not be active now. You have a GL, it may be active now, or maybe active, or maybe inactive. So here we can have a different active from this date to this date, or you can make it inactive, or you can make some advance active from this date, then you become inactive. Yeah. So you can make active, inactive as required. Okay. Then here we talk about account name, foreign name, and all that. Any text category which you want to define. There is also, we see that here, there's something called relevant for budget. Look at this small button, relevant for budget. I would like you to see, let me just make it a little bit larger. So there's a small icon here that is called relevant for budgets. In SAP Finance, we'll talk about that. Actually, this is budgeting process. So we have a class on the budgeting as well. In this budgeting, you can define that how much this budget this customer is relevant for. Okay, so we can do this budgeting. If it is relevant for the budgeting, we can assign here this is relevant for budgeting. Do you want to save the changes? No. That is what you see here. Now in the configuration, you can also in the document setting, warning or blockage validation can be defined in the document setting. If your balance goes certain limit, more or less or whatever, so if you don't want, then what you can also do, you can basically put a you can also put a detailed validation for that as well. Now if you see here, there is something called account balance allowed. You see the account balance allowed from this to this. So that basically means you can define min-max level. So that basically means in this GL, if you get more than this cost, so take an example of it. So let's say we have a project, and if we say, okay, this project will cost me 10 lakhs. If it goes beyond 10 lakhs, then I want a message that, okay, you have exceeded 10 lakhs. So in that case, you can have a relevance for budget. Okay? So that is what this basically means. And that is what we see here in the configuration also, from this state to this state. And in the document setting, in the configuration, you can also define, you see that without warning, warning only, block posting. You see the three things. Now, what is the meaning of that? This basically means if you have a limit, and if you exceed the limit, what happens? So if you exceed the limit, the first, without any warning, go ahead. Warning only, that basically means system give me warning and let you go. And third one is a block posting. That basically means system blocks you. You can't go any further. That is part of document setting. Summary. So we talked about account structure in the multiple drawers. There's a balance sheet account, right? And then there's a P&L account. Within the P&L account, you have multiple drawers. Like in balance sheet, you have your assets and liabilities and equities. In the profit and loss, you have a different income and you have your different expenses. Right? So we saw profit and loss. We also see trial balance. We saw the definition of them. We saw there could be different drawers which you can define in the system. So you can put the define. We can also define chart of account in a company. So we can define chart of account as well. And then we also see that for every chart, you can see what currency it is. You can define related projects. If you have project associated to it, you can also define whether it is active. If it is active, you can also define till when this project is active. And then you can also define your min-max label also. So all these different things we have talked about in this particular chapter. So now we're going to the next chapter, which is called default GL account. So what is the default GL account? Let's go about it. So we're going to discuss, we're going to talk about default GL account. So what is the GL account? Default GL account basically means. So in the default GL account, what does system does for us? We talked about this default GL account briefly before also. So what we talked about in this default GL account is that, like in case of customer invoicing, in case of vendor invoicing, in case of good receipt, in case of delivery, and many other places, we saw that system basically default certain general ledger. We saw that today also, and we saw that multiple times actually. We saw that before. So if you do you want to save changes? No. Chart of account? No. Then we close that. If let us say I go to sales, let us say I go to customer invoice, and we go back, and if we see customer invoice, we see the general entry. Now all these account is a default account, right? We talked about that multiple times. That sales revenue goes to this account. CST tax payable goes to this account. So how does these accounts get determined. That is what we are talking here, default GL account. We saw that few times. We saw that before defining the default GL account. We also saw that in the chart of account, the default GL account has a green color. So they've been provided a separate color. There's a green color, there's a blue color, and there's a black color. Black color is in any account which is active. Blue, which is basically an heading. And the green account is the one which is a default account, which you have in the system. Okay. So we saw that, all those different type of documents we see in the system. So we're going to talk and discuss again. Okay. To discuss the option for defining default GL account. So profit loss report, you want to see what are the profit of each item group printer, and then how do we automatically general entry made to the relevant profit and loss accounts. So that is what we are talking about here. Now in SAP, we discussed as well, there is an account determination window. So where is this account determination window? We talked in the, I think, last class as well. So we go back and okay, I close this. Now if I go to admin, in admin, if you go to setup, if you go to finance, and we have a GL account determination. This is GL account determination. This is GL account determination. In the GL account determination, here we have a sales, purchasing, general, inventory, work in progress, resources. We have sales, these are the purchase, these are general, this is for inventory, this is for resources which we handle in production, this is for work in progress. These are different accounts. These are, now we see the revenue account. The revenue account is 400000. The revenue account is 40000. If I go to AR cycle, then in the AR cycle, and if I go to AR customer, if I go to general entry, what is my sales revenue domestic? 4000. And it is coming from where? If we close this, so here in this account determination window, we have a revenue account 40000. That is how system perform account determination. Now, what also we have discussed and talked about, we have different options. Voice is breaking. Oh, can you hear my voice? It's coming okay? My voice coming okay? Okay. So here, default GL account for an item. This is the traditional solution. Most people do use traditional solution, but you have other solution also being used. Okay. So that is also what we can do. Okay. So that basically means we talked about that also, default GL account for an item. So if you go to customer invoice, if you look at this item A001, if you click on it, and then if I go to inventory data, and here we have a default GL account. If I go to drop down, then we have warehouse, item group, item level. So we have these three choices: warehouse, item group, item level. Warehouse level, item group, and item level. Okay. These are the three options. So in traditional solution, we have three choices. Default GL account for an item, either based upon warehouse level, based upon item group level, based upon item level. Three choices. So if I go back here, if you look at this item master, you have three choices: warehouse level, item group level, or we have item level. So we have a total of three choices. This is what we have. So there are three options to define a GL method for an item. Either you can define at the warehouse level, item group level, or item level. That is what this basically means. Now, what the system do based upon item, system select that from this item, what is my GL method? This is my item. My GL method is item group. My item group is a printer. And this item group system checks what is my inventory account, what is my revenue account. Now, how do we do that? So if let us say I'm using account determination by account material group. So here we have a material group. If I click on the material group, then here we have a different accounts. So these are my different accounts for expenses, for revenue, for inventory, for sales, or whatever. Okay. That is what we do. So we have also something called advanced GL account determination. Advanced account determination method has to be activated. Now, where do we activate that? So here, we close this. If I close this, so here we go to basic initialization in company details. In company detail, we have basic initialization, and here we can activate. We call it advanced inventory determination methods. See that here, this button, enable advanced GL account determination. By default, this is not active. By default, is active is traditional account determination. Most people will use traditional account determination method. some people can also use this advanced account determination method also. If some people want, they can use this advanced GL account determination method as well. But before that, you have to activate this button. That is what we see here. Now, what is the fundamental difference? So if somebody says that, okay, we have a traditional account determination method, and then we have an advanced account determination method, what is the difference between the two? So in the account determination method, you can define different rules. Now here, you can have additional criteria which you cannot do in traditional method. Now, what does that basically mean? So in the advanced GL account determination, you can define additional account default parameters or criteria. We have item group, which is printer. We have ship to party, which is US. And so you have additional criteria, ship to country. So now what does this basically means? That if I'm sending the printer to the US, my account is 1001. If I'm sending the same printer to Canada, then my inventory account is 2001. If I'm sending the same printer to the country Brazil, my account is 3001. And there could be different accounts. So revenue account is this. Now same thing. The same printer, go to US, my revenue account is 1001. If I'm sending the same printer to the Canada, to my revenue account is 201. If I'm sending the printer to the Brazil, my same revenue account is 3002. Same thing, if you see expense account. So if I'm sending the printer, if selling the printer to the US, my expense account is 1003. If I'm selling the same printer to my country, Canada, then my expense account is. So that basically means you can define additional parameters. You cannot do this in traditional method. So you have more flexibility, you have more attributes, you have more fields which you can use as a basis to determine the GL. For example, ship to party. So based upon the country of destination, I can define my different GL accounts. But most people don't do that. Okay? So that is what this basically means. Color will also be different. Color all? Color of what? So this is summary. Default is default. Color of revenue? No, I didn't understand what you mean by that. Color is by default or not default. If it's default, then you're green. What is the in previous sheet? Green means default. It could be default whatever method. It could be your traditional method or you could be your advanced determination. So color is, if it's a default account, is a green color. If it's an active account, is a black color. If it's a header, it's a blue color. It is not for revenue account. Start reading. Okay. So that is what this basically means. Okay. Now, coming back to working with the currencies. And we'll talk about this and then we'll end today. So you can define your currencies at the time of implementation, and then you can check the consequences of the currency definitions in your company. Currencies. So you can have a different currencies. Okay. So most of the customer have their own currencies. So now whenever you do any transaction, so for example, so let's say you're doing unit price. So here we have INR. So we see that currency everywhere is INR, 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 INR. If I go to this customer, for example, and in this customer, if you see the balances here, you have a currency. And if you see their balances also here, then these balances also in the certain currency. You see that INR, INR, INR. So Indian rupees. You can define different currencies. You also have a different other methods, payment terms, net payments. Now, your bank entry and all that, we discussed that in the beginning of our classes. That is what we have. Customers and vendors can be located in another country. So it is basically means it is possible that when we are sending the material to a customer, when we are sending the material to a vendor, they might be in the different currencies. It's possible. So I'm in India, so my system currency is in INR, but my customer is in Canada, my customer is in Europe, my customer is in Britain, my customer is in Japan. So customer can have their own currencies. So first and foremost, there is a currency we defined at the different level. So currency is defined at the local level and system currencies, account currencies. So we saw in the account was also currency. Remember in the account when I was saying that every account is assigned to a currency. We saw about transactions like customer transactions and all that is assigned to a currency. So in the different levels, we have a currency. And if you go back here, in the company detail, we have local currency INR. What is my local currency? INR, Indian rupees. So we are working in Indian rupees. So that is basically, you can put your address and all that. But here in basic initialization, you put your local currency. Local and system currency. So we go back here. We have a local currency, system currency. Currencies is there in accounts also. Currencies we saw in the price list also. If you remember, we are working on the price list, and then on the price list, we can have different currencies. So if I go back to the price list, we did that before. If I go to price list, in the price list also, we can have a primary currency, INR, INR, INR. You can have a second currency also. And we talk about a second currency is US dollars. The third currency is British pound. Okay. So you can define different currencies. That is what we have. You can also post the exchange rate differences, because it's also possible that exchange rate, there's a difference, and you can post the exchange rate differences. So how do you maintain exchange rate differences? How do you maintain your conversion differences? Because exchange rate can change on a daily, weekly basis. So now what I want to do is though, because the new topic and long topic. So before I go into the detail, probably this is a good logical break point. So So I will suggest that we stop now, okay? And we will talk tomorrow. So with that, I would like to thank you all, and let's talk tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much, and talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much.